Well, dare I say it, happy freezing Veterans Day from Antelope Valley, California. 7:42 in the morning, it's 27 degrees out here. That's a bit of a yip and a nip. It is Veterans Day today, for Wednesday, the 11th of November. Oh, yeah, is it not? Oh, shit. I'm coming for the other stuff. Should have fixed the coffee earlier. A little warm, but still got some warmth left. Chocolate from last night. Thermos's work. It is Veterans Day. It is the day we honor those who are still living and dead that have served our country. And I am proud to call my brother, my biological brother, my brother in many ways. I had posted on my Facebook feed pictures of what he was like in boot camp. Not the younger pictures. I didn't want to embarrass the living crap out of him. But I also posted his older years, his waning years. He was very much a Navy man. There's a hell of a long story about him. Growing up, he did have a lot of difficulties. He was born in Dallas, Texas. My mother married, technically, theoretically married my father, Eric Shaw. My brother's name was David Worshaw. My mother was Mary Ann, actually Illinois Cameron. And she married my brother's father. We both had two different fathers at different times. So I was born well after my brother was. Doesn't make us half brothers. It still makes us brothers. Same mother though. And it's hard as hell for me to talk about this. I mean, I did a complete video, did a memorial vlog on him. It was hard as hell for me to do that because my brother had passed away a couple of years ago, and I did a tribute for him. I hadn't shown it to people, but earlier this year, or ending of last year, I had posted it. Those screen grips concerning about music. Always got to watch out for those copyrights. I did my brother's complete history, not to mention my mother's. And it was hard as hell for me to do that on my own YouTube channel. Because I was trying to describe what my brother was like back then. But I didn't do any narrations on the damn thing. I really couldn't because the pain was still fresh and it was hard as hell to deal with. My brother and I weren't tight, but he tried to be tight with me. I was too much of a scared, sickly kid when I was born. My brother already had issues dealing with my mother trying to find work in another home, so he was left with his aunt and uncle out in Bell, California, with three sisters who became his sisters. Surrogate, actually. They wanted to adopt my brother. My mother wouldn't allow it. She finally found a place, had work, and she took my brother back. He was really rebelling against it. She had to take him over to therapists who worked with him for a long while and with my mother in order to deal with him. It took David and me decades to get to a point where we were the tightest gentlemen you'd ever seen. We were our mother's sons. We were her hands, her feet. We were her caregivers until the day she died. On some occasions, we'd yell and argue at each other for different miscommunications. But we watched each other's back left and right. We made sure that we had to do that because we were depending upon each other for survival. In my brother's later years, he discovered that they had a thing called stolen valor going on. A guy named Shipley was looking for all those people who had pretended to be military, pretended something they weren't. My brother was, but he was in class 276 over at San Diego Recruit Training Center back in 1976 or 77. He had graduated boot, and because of certain circumstances that happened in boot camp, he went to train with the United States Navy SEALs. He's dead, so nothing can happen to him. I'm not worried about anybody else trying to steal his valor or take his thunder away. He earned his. He had his going into the Navy. And the thing of it is, when you give your lives to the Navy and to the United States government, they're not exactly most forgiving, especially when he had to take time off and take care of his family that the Navy and U.S. government didn't allow. My brother wasn't exactly 4-0, but he wasn't exactly a dropout either. He was a good man, though. When he went back in, yes, they did strip him. They wanted to put him discharged disorderly, dishonored. And it's hard for me to talk about this because I'm talking about my brother in the past tense, and it's hard as hell for me to deal with it. I love my brother a great deal. You've seen pictures of it on different YouTubes. It's one over here. The hardest damn thing for me to do is find a younger picture of him, because I have a great number of them. This is like about 5 years before his death. Notice the crest. He earned it. The only picture, it's not the only picture I have, but it is a picture that is worth having. Above his head is my mother, that we loved very much. I'd seen my brother go through hell in a handbasket. When he was in the Navy, and he learned about my grandmother's situation that my mother was trying to take care of. My mother, my grandmother, and I had lived in a little town called Arleta. It was part of the city of Los Angeles anyway, San Fernando Valley. We got kicked out, my landlord, and had to move to another place. And when we got a new place in Granada Hills, California, back in 1979, our grandmother had a falling out with my mother a little bit. They both had to calm down, so Grandma decided to take a little traveling trip, so she flew out to San Diego to see my relatives, Uncle Bill and Ann Chun, God rest their souls. They're survived by their sons, Raymond Cameron and Chris Cameron. They never left San Diego County. It's been a home ever since. My brother had done his recruit training over there in San Diego before they shut it down a couple of decades later. Budget cuts, base reallocation programs they had going on back in the late 80s, early 90s to cut waste in the government. They had to reconsolidate a lot of services. He was there. First 2 or 3 weeks of orientation in boot camp. There was a gentleman named Wyatt, who I understand several years ago had passed away, but had enough time with my brother to reconcile some differences. This is from the old book. This gentleman here is Wyatt. Oop. Sorry. That's Wyatt, and that's Jefferson. B.T. Jefferson. Jefferson knew my brother was going to be a boiler technician. He just called it out. My brother became a boiler technician. Wyatt was his antagonist. He was also the company commander. Wyatt had got on my brother's case so much because of my brother's physical condition, or conditioning. My brother was growing up and going to Texas a lot to see his father. Long story short, my mother divorced my brother's father a long time ago over a sale of a house and being a drunk and beating up my mother. My mother took matters into her own hands, beat the shit out of him in the middle of the night, took my brother and left. Divorced him. He still loved my mother. I met my brother's father, Harry Shaw, decades later. He was vice president of merchandising in a trucking company. And my brother and him swapped stories while he was in between stops. He was out in Commerce, California, at a motel. My brother and I were talking shop. First and only time I've actually met his father. I've talked to him a few times on the phone, but that was the first time I actually met my surrogate dad. So. Wyatt had got on my brother's case so much because of my brother's girth, as I said before. He was stocky. He had muscle, but he looked like he was fat. He was always called a fat boy and always done errands. One day, I think during the first and second week of orientation, he got in my brother's case so much, including ragging on him about our mother. And that's the one subject you never did, is approach a person about their mother. Wyatt discovered what a dislocated jaw was real fast. My brother had taken martial arts training. He had attended a Chuck Norris school of martial arts at a young age. It was taught by Chuck Norris a long time ago. So there was moves that he made that would consider him close to a damn black belt. My brother could never be a black belt because he could qualify for being a black belt. He was that good. But there were things in his past that he could not, and they would qualify him as a weapon, and he wasn't quite old enough for it. But he took that training, and he brought it with him into the Navy. And he used it on Wyatt once. The next thing my brother knows, he's on the deck, jumped on by every other company commander, beating the living crap out of him. Next thing he knows, he's up in sick bay 2 or 3 days later, getting out of somewhat of a coma, I guess. He was unconscious for a hell of a long while. The Navy had a hard time trying to decide what the hell to do for him. His company commander saw my brother had a hell of a lot of potential. And my brother did everything the Navy's told him to do in the Navy, in the boot camp. And he also noticed how Wired was always jumping on his ass. Wired was also in the sick bay as well, worse than my brother. The Navy gave my brother a choice. Someone from the SEALs saw my brother, made a recommendation to the base commander, put him through the paces of the SEAL training, first 3 phases, and see what happens, see if he washes out. Or else he washes out with a dishonorable, which is the worst thing a veteran can ever go through. He becomes non-existent in the United States government or anyone else. He is like some of those veterans still on the street, homeless as hell because they can't get services. Not a way to treat your vets, I'll tell you that much. My brother took the hard way. He went through the first 3 phases and continued on with the SEALs. He wasn't allowed to wear his Budweiser because he hadn't earned it. But he went through service. He went through a ceremony after completing the first 3 phases. And one of my uncles was there. Same uncle who lived out in San Diego. Raymond Morris. Everyone in the family called him Bill or Billy. I called him Uncle Bill. My mother's name was Ellen Ray Shaw. She was married to my brother's father. She kept the last name. But everybody called her Marianne because she had a personality of being a Marianne. It was 8 years after my brother's father, Harry, got divorced by my mother, that she hooked up with my own biological sperm donor, Jack Elmer Weaver. Never did quite consummate the marriage, but I retained the last name, Weaver. They were chosen to keep me as Shaw, but they didn't. So I'm a Weaver. My brother had gone through more phases in the United States Navy SEALs, more hazardous training. His first leave coming home from the SEAL training, he was a different person. I didn't know him, I didn't recognize him. The family was scared to death of him. My big brother, who used to laugh and be a smart ass, was a real cold-hearted bastard. And he couldn't talk to my mom about it. My mom knew automatically that he had gone through a hell of a lot and needed to talk to somebody in the Navy about it. Because my mother had gone through a lot with my brother regarding his early childhood psychological traumas, and she knew he needed help. He went over to Long Beach Naval Yards when they still had them open, talked to a shrink who used to be part of the first team of Navy SEALs in Vietnam. He switched over, he was a medic, he was also a SEAL, and also became a shrink afterwards, dealing with veterans who actually had war traumas. After that talk, my brother shoved everything mentally aside and became the same smartass he ever was. My brother told me this one decades later because he felt it was right for me to do so. It was hard for him to talk about his battle stuff he was going through because he was so emotionally and legally bound to keep it quiet. He said there were certain missions that were classified. I didn't argue with the damn thing. I know these days that people like to brag that they were in the military. And they did classified hush-hush things. My brother had told me three things about the United States SEALs. One about Old Misery, one about Roger Perry, his swim buddy, but I forgot about his class number. Last several years of his life, my brother went over to one of those stand-downs, and he had talked to a lot of veterans, including some old SEALs that are no longer here. One of them was called Lieutenant, actually LT. He never did want to be a SEAL. Actually, he did want to be a SEAL, but he didn't want to be an officer. He was content of being just a chief petty officer. But in the field, he got promoted, being a lieutenant, so that's why he was called LT. Tough, ornery bastard. He didn't allow me to take any pictures of him. I didn't think it was appropriate anyway. But I will not forget him. He gave me one of his SEAL pins. I still keep it and treasure it. He helped my brother and verified my brother. Both of them knew of Don Shipley, the guy who hunts down stolen valor a lot. Also goes after people who keep claiming that they're SEALs. My brother has said that he had contacted Don Shipley regarding his own status, and according to Shipley, my brother still had status in the SEALs, unfortunately because of his discharge. That still couldn't still officially recognize him, but he still had standing. Unfortunately, I wish the paper could have reflected that. My brother had tried for God knows how long, since '85, trying to get his discharge upgraded with every paperwork he could. Testimonies from people who had seen my brother had gone through alcohol and drug abuse in the military and had changed his ways. My brother died clean and sober, 32 years clean and sober. My brother's sobriety date was September 18th. September 18th, 1985. My brother died in February. February 8th. Actually, February 3rd, 2018. He had gotten his 32nd birthday of clean and sober. He had fought the good fight. He had did a lot of good for a lot of people. He was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He helped a lot of veterans and a lot of newcomers, including this one. I hardly ever talk about my brother in those terms because it's hard as hell for me to talk about him. I miss him. I know I've shown people in my videos what he looked like about 20 years ago. Laughing, smiling with my mother and me at a Los Angeles County Fair back in 2002. My mother was running a business of income tax and bookkeeping service. And she was meeting up with a client out there. But we also decided we were going to have some fun that day too. I miss my brother every single day since he's passed. When he was alive, he wasn't afraid to show his SEAL colors, even though he was warned off decades ago that if he happened to be showing his military wardrobe or anything else like that, he would have been arrested. Well, he did show it off. He wasn't afraid. He talked to a lot of people at air shows and recruit training centers. We had a couple of them out here in Antelope Valley he went to, even a vet center. He was very proud of the fact he had served the United States Navy. He was proud of the fact he was a United States Navy SEAL. I miss him a great deal. You know, I know a lot of people had bragged about their service. They talked to other people and said, yeah, I've been this and I've been that. My brother was there. He had medical records to prove some of it. 1983 bombing in Beirut. My brother was recalled because he was still subject under recall concerning his discharge. Because of his classification and special training. He was a special weapons operator. First class. His call sign was God. He had been on a rescue mission with a team. I'm not going to give out any more information except he was in a shack on base in Beirut at the embassy, waiting for extraction when the terrorists hit. Things were exploding all around. He had rebar in his back. But he was still fighting and had prevented more destruction. It helps when he had been able to shoot people as they were approaching the base. Another truck ready to blow the place up. He said that was declassified. I don't know if it was or not, but I know every time he kept going over to the damn doctor's office, I always asked about the damn rebar in his back. It wasn't for an industrial accident. He still had shards right next to his damn spine. They could have been removed, but it turned my brother into a paraplegic. He wasn't going to do that. He wanted to walk. Doctors could remove it, but they couldn't guarantee him he was going to walk out. He never had it taken out. They did give him some discomfort, but they never did paralyze his ass. Every time he kept going to a metal detector, the damn thing always would go off, and they had to wire it. He'd also had titanium knees because of training in the SEALs. Busted out his kneecaps. Had to retrain himself back in condition again where he was fighting mad. The hardest damn thing to see about my brother. The hardest thing from my memories regarding my brother at this point in his latter years is the position I'm sitting in right now, the chair I'm sitting in right now. He's the same here. I sat across from him. Well, we always kept watching each other's back. He had a thing that he learned in the military about watching your back and watching your buddies' backs. He trained me on that. In his first shore leave, he was telling me that. And we kept the practice ever since. I don't wear his pins. I have his pins. They are stored. They are safe. I don't touch his sealed stuff. The only thing I had was a blanket he had gotten several years ago. A throw. And he used it a lot to keep himself warm and other dogs we had. I hadn't washed it since he passed away, and my dog uses it for her own. He had been a smartass when he was growing up as a kid. I learned how to trust him a little better when I was a lot older. Things happened in the Navy that he couldn't talk about until decades when he was confessing in 12-step programs of what the hell happened to him that turned him into an alcoholic and drug user. He was trying to get away from the damn pain. There was things I can't say because I'm not going to undignify it. When he was discharged out of the Navy, he was an alcoholic and drug addict. And it took a while for that to really do its damage that my mother and I had to throw him out back in 1985. And for about 3 to 4 months, he was on the streets, going through God knows what else. Came back home as a skeleton. He had already spent 3 days in a nut hut at Northridge Hospital. The psychologist over there, actually a shrink, psychiatrist, also a former military Marine, said things in plain language to my brother. Said, yeah, I'm going to help. He got home as a skeleton, and he had to find. Actually, my mother had someone for him to contact. He had met some wonderful people in AA, wonderful sponsors. One of them was CW. CW was one of those people that died in the 1994 earthquake. He was a motorcycle officer coming to work when the earthquake hit in Northridge. It was one of my brother's sponsors. Veterans Day means a lot to me and my brother. I hadn't posted the flag up in a long while because of my brother's passing. I should have. It's hard as hell for me to do so because it reminds me too much of him. I kept a broken wall clock up there, a constant reminder. Stopped ticking when he did. A constant reminder of his life. I can't explain my brother any further or any other way. I don't brag about my brother's achievements in the military because I don't know him all that much. I hardly ever met the SEAL community because we were so distant, and my brother never hung around in San Diego all that much, or even Coronado. It wasn't exactly well liked because he was too much of a smartass during those days. Roger Perry came over to the house constantly. And he also didn't want to have a picture taken either. I guess they were like that back then. My brother had told me stories about Perry. He had tried every single service. Maybe it was his last before he would retire. Anyway, said before I posted pictures on Facebook regarding my brother. And a lot of people will just be jumping out and saying it's all fake stories. You know what? I don't give a shit. You didn't live it. You didn't walk through my shoes. You didn't walk through his shoes. So your opinion doesn't count. If you happen to say thank you for his service, I'll take that. I was a caregiver to him, and I was a caregiver to my mother. Basically, I served my country as well. While my brother was dealing with the military and dealing with the after effects of what happened, I was going through high school at the time and did a whole year of volunteer work at a VA hospital along with several other students. Got a certificate from it too, so in a way I served my country by serving veterans. I'm very proud of that too. I'm proud of all of our veterans who served. We may all have our different opinions about things in life, but I will never detract, I will never subtract anything that they've done in the military. They did something I couldn't do. I was born what they called medically 4F. I had plumbing issues with my heart that had to be fixed at the age of 4 years old and precluded me from doing any military service for my country. But that did not stop me from being a caregiver. Last several years of my brother's life, I was his caregiver. I'm very proud of that fact. I'm very proud of my brother. I'm very humbled and humiliated. I love my brother. I love my brother. Rest in peace, David Shaw. I wish there was a hell of a lot more I could say about you, bro. I know that you're a pain in the ass at times. It gets harder and harder during the holiday seasons. It gets harder when I see patriotic events coming up that I feel like I'm not qualified to go to Guess you're not there with me. I'm always afraid of someone jumping on my ass saying he was never a SEAL. He was a SEAL. He just didn't have the discharge papers to prove it. He couldn't get them because the Navy wasn't interested in helping my brother out one way or another. And because of certain circumstances we've had in the last several years, we lost a lot of his paperwork that could have proven he was going through a hell of a lot of grief and trouble, and nobody in the Navy could help him. He went through sources. He went through admirals. Hell, he even tried contacting Admiral Creevy. My brother told me stories about Admiral Creevy. He was a lieutenant. He already had his career in the Navy, but he wanted to be a SEAL back in '77. It was part of a boat crew my brother was in. Him and Roger Perry. Everyone else gets screwing him up except this particular boat crew because he had a pact going on. If McCreevy would not cut it as a SEAL, he was ending his entire Navy career. He became Chief of Special Operations for the Navy SEALs before he retired decades later. And my brother, I just told you my brother's story this morning. And I doubt McCreevy would know my brother, even though they were somewhat tight during those training days. I doubt he would know my brother at all, David Wershaw. A lot of people called my brother Woody because he had a Woody Woodpecker on his arm. My brother always hated that name, Woody. Some asshole in the Navy would go, Woody! He ended up with a broken nose. He always wanted to get that damn thing redone over at Tiger Gyms back in San Diego a long time ago. Just never had the chance. Somebody screwed up on the damn thing. And he was ended up with this. He even tried to get it corrected at another tattoo parlor, but got even worse. So he just said, hell with it. I'll just keep it as is. Got a cross and a yin and yang on another arm. He was my brother. He was my best friend. He was my big brother. I celebrate him. I memorialize him today. I just wanted to share this about my brother today. A holiday season like this, and it hurts like hell because he's not here. Maybe here in spirit, that's about it, but I still wanted him here physically. And it still hurts like hell. Passed away due to a stroke. If he had gotten his damn discharge upgraded a long time ago, he would have had better health benefits. People would have treated him a hell of a lot better. It still burns me to this day that I can't get his name cleared. We lost the records in transit. We lost all those damn paperwork that would have proven my brother had hardship times because all those witnesses out there are long dead. The only thing I could do is tell his story. Share his story. I wish I could have done better for my brother. I wish I could have done better